Welcome to that new video about Inventory Management Cloud. Let's do a quick tour on the Supply Chain Management Cloud solution. On the home page, you can find the to-do list and some information. The supply chain module can be found on top here with product management, supply chain planning, or supplier portal, supply chain execution, and underneath you can find a functional area like inventory management. When you click on the functional area, you have access to the dashboard with many KPIs. You have also the possibility to select the organization where you're working with. Today we do a deep dive in inventory management that is part of the Supply Chain Management Cloud solution. We focus on the transaction, the management, and the accounting for our inventory management, so a complete physical and financial management of goods across the supply chain. We speak of the receipt of inventory, the movement of inventory within the supply chain, picking and shipping to customers, and potentially to other members of our internal supply chain via transfer order and so on. And then, of course, the costing and the analysis of our performance. From an inventory management perspective, we are talking about a complete source to settle or order to cash and or plan to produce business cycle. Depending on whether you are just a distributor or just a manufacturer or a manufacturer and a distributor, maybe all of the things come into play. And you can see the process from a procurement as well as from a shipment perspective, the notion of having to receive and potentially having to inspect upon a receipt before you actually put the stock away and then make it available for internal use, having potentially manufacturing issues, in other words, issuing to manufacturing, not a problem with manufacturing, and also doing your manufacturer completion transaction, so issuing raw material, finishing a sub-assembly, and then ultimately completing a final assembly, doing your cycle gun, managing replenishment, reporting, moving inventory around, staging it for various purposes, whether for manufacturing or ultimately for shipping. So when the outbound, you will be receiving automatically or manually performing the pick process and ultimately the shipping. If we look at receiving, we've got three different perspectives to perceive the receive process. We've got a receiving agent, a warehouse operator, and the requester. And as you can see here, a variety of transactions relating to the physical receiving, to the put away, to the inspection, and so on, and perhaps even dealing with paperwork invoices that come in from your supplier. Of course, the accounting typically is handled in the background automatically by the system based on configuration setups. From an inventory perspective, again, this time a warehouse manager, an inventory manager, and maybe at ground level, the warehouse operator. And you can see some of the types of activities that various different layers of individuals have at their disposal. So the warehouse manager may be looking at a big picture review of inventory balances and high-level analysis. The inventory manager, on the other hand, is a little lower down to the ground and is concerned with perhaps min-max replenishment, management of consigned goods, and their movement through the warehouse, and so on. And then, of course, the warehouse operator, the person who is actually doing all the work at ground level, physically moving things around, doing cycle count, and so on. From a shipment perspective, again, we see the warehouse manager, the warehouse operator. And now we have a shipping agent and again, the associated transactions from a shipping perspective. So now we have a warehouse operator that's concerned with picking and loading up inventory for picking purposes. Let's first talk about the inventory organization. Any premise can be defined as inventory organization, whether a company, distribution center, or warehouse. In the inventory organization, you can specify multiple sub-inventory, such as on-hand quantity, inspection, and so on. You can also specify the locator with the row, the rack, and the bin, or any level you want to manage. As an example of inventory organization, you can specify multiple sub-inventory like receiving, raw material, inspection, shipping, and so on. In this example, I open the inventory management functional area and I will check the quantity of an item. I can look for on-hand quantity, receiving quantity, and inbound quantity. The quantity will be displayed per organization and sub-inventory, like store, inspection, and so on. The quantity on hand doesn't mean that the quantity is available. So that's the reason why we have the availability of the item. So here we can see that nothing is reserved. The typical reservation is where we have a sales order and we have inventory on hand already, and we reserve that inventory for that particular sales order. But we may have different kind of reservation as well, and we have different kind of demand, and we have different kind of supply. So if we look at some of the supply type, on hand obviously is our most firm and readily available type of supply, or the obvious source of supply. But what about inbound products? Purchase order where we haven't yet received them, but we know we have PO out there. It's supposed to come in a week or tomorrow. We can also reserve against that purchase order. What if we don't have a purchase order yet, but we already have a requisition? So various supply type can serve as the supply for a reservation. On the other side of the fence, the typical demand type would be, of course, a sales order, but we may have other type of demand, whether it's a user-defined demand, maybe a marketing demand for a trade show. We need samples to bring to the trade show and so on. To create a reservation, I go to the task list of the functional area inventory management. I create my reservation here, and then I select the type of reservation that I'd like to create, and that's going to be here a user-defined demand. I select the organization and the supply document type, that's going to be on hand. Well, here I will document my demand that is going to be for the trade show, and I will select the product. And then I will select the sub-inventory where I'd like to do the reservation and the quantity to reserve. Obviously, the reservation can be done automatically. Now, if I go back to the quantity of the material of the item, I fill in the item number, and I can see that the quantity that on hand is still 139, but the quantity available is now 138. One has been reserved. Now I will create a miscellaneous transaction. First, I select the type of transaction, and here it's miscellaneous issue. I'd like to use the current item cost, and then I specify the account. Then I specify the item that is concerned by this miscellaneous transaction. This is our item. and the system will give me the quantity on hand and the quantity available. So now I want to pick it up from the sub-inventory store, and the quantity is 1. And I click submit. The miscellaneous transaction is created. All those transactions can be done automatically, obviously. If I go back to the item quantity for our specific product, I will find out that the available on-hand quantity is now -1. And now I will create internal movement between two sub-inventory. So for instance, I need to pick up a product, our product, from a store, and I need to put it in the inspection. So I will describe the movement request. I select the type of transaction, that is here transfer, from the source of inventory that is stored to quarantine, inspection, or whatever the sub-inventory. And I will select the item. I specify the quantity and then I submit it. And now I will run the process using the process scheduler that is usually schedule and process in the background. The schedule name is print movement request. From here I select the organization, and I'd like to filter only on my movement request, the one that I just created, and I want to run this not at simulation, but I want to release approval lines. Then I go back to my functional area inventory management, and I can find in my infolet the pick slip that has been created. Here I'm gonna confirm this pick slip, so I select it and I click confirm. When I go back to the dashboard, the infolet is updated and the pick slip has been confirmed. I can do also inter-organization transfer. So first of all, I'm gonna check the quantity of the item per organization. So for this item, I got 138 item on hand and 137 available for the organization 01. If I select the 02, that is Atlanta, then I will check the quantity on hand and the quantity available for the same item. So I fill in the item number, and the quantity available is 167, or the quantity on hand. So I change the organization, go back to the 001, and then I will create the inter-organization transfer. To do that, I just have to specify the destination organization. So from 001, I'd like to send over to the 02. That's going to be in-transit shipment. So the shipment number can be provided manually or it can be generated automatically. And then I create the line item, I specify the item, and I specify where I need to pick it up, from which inventory, sub-inventory. So here we're going to take it from the store, and I know that there is 137 quantity available and 136 available and 137 but on hand. And I can also propose to put it on the store at the destination, but just as a proposal. Then the destination will decide whether they want to put it on the store or somewhere else. If I switch from the organization 01 to the organization 02, then I will do the receipt and I will receive an expected shipment. From the expected shipment, I can complete the in-transit shipment number, the one that had just been created before on the 001 organization, and I click Receive. I can document the receive with the receive quantity. Then I will do the put array of the receipt. So I complete the in-transit shipment, the one that I just created before. I select the line and click put away, and then I will specify the quantity and the sub-inventory where I'd like to put away. Eventually, I can also specify the locator. And I don't want to put it on the store directly, I want to do on the inspection. If I go back to the inventory and I want to check the quantity for this item on the organization 002, I fill in the item number, I click search, and here I can find that the item is on the organization 002 and there are two sub-inventory where we can find the store and the inspection quantities. Now let's talk about replenishment. So we will configure the replenishment planning in the product information management functional area where we're gonna manage the item. So I will specify my item and I will open up the item. I can find that this item is available in multiple organizations and the master organization is 000. I click on the specification of the item and then on the planning function where I can specify that the inventory planning method is min and max, and I can specify the source level of replenishment that is here at the organization level. I complete the min and max quantity and I save it. So here for this item we do a replenishment per organization. Next I will specify per organization where is the source, meaning which organization will supply this replenishment to the 001. I go to specification again and planning, but here at the level of the item for the organization 001 Seattle, and I'd like that this item to be replenished by or sourced by the organization 002 that is Atlanta. Whenever the quantity is below the minimum, the processes that is running on the background will automatically schedule the replenishment. The process's name is print min and max planning report. And here I will specify the organization, the sort by, so here we select the inventory item. Optionally, we can specify the item, and in this case, this is what I'd like to do. The planning level will be at the organization, and it's going to be for all min and max plan item. And here I want to do it not as a simulation. In advance, I have the capabilities to provide a report or to generate a report in PDF right after the process has run. And when I click submit, the process run and the quantity will be automatically replenished if it's below the minimum. Well, now let's talk about the cycle count. In the task menu, I will select the count and I will create a cycle count. I name my count here, and then I will select the sub-inventory to count. So I include in the count the store here. Then I click to next, and I will specify that I want this to be automatically scheduled daily, and I need to get an approval process. Then I click next, and I like to get a minimum day before late, it's 1. So if it's on delay, then I'm gonna have in my info late the information about the count that is delayed. Then here on define classes and item, I will specify that it's only for the class A, and it's a count for 152 counts per year, and I select the item that I like to count. Then I click next, I review the detail, and I save and close. Then I will record my consequences. So I specify the count that I like to find. So that is my cycle count, the one that I just created before. I click search, and I open up the count in order to provide the count quantity. I can specify any reason, any comment, and who count it. And then in my infolet, I can find the cycle count to be approved. I just click on it, then I click on the total link to open up the approval, and I found the deviation in value or percentage, any reasons, and I just click submit. If I reject, recount, or approved. Obviously, inventory management support lot management and serial number management. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.